Welcome back to The Purposeful Man. The first episode was a welcome to the journey. In this episode, we're going to do something different. And we hope that it's exciting because we're going to do an interview. And because I don't have a second person, we're going to do some role playing. And hopefully, this is interesting to you. So, I have a list of questions here so that you're able to get a better understanding of who the purposeful man is. And so we're going to go through those questions today, and we're going to see what responses we get from the purposeful man. So we'll start off with, first of all, welcome to the other side of the camera. And we want to be able to get your insight or what your thought process was in designing, developing this series with the purposeful man, and kind of what your intent is behind it. I think people deserve to know who the man behind the mission is. So who exactly are you? All right, so who am I? I'm just a regular guy. I'm a guy that has been alive for 50 years, and I've learned some things along the way. Not everything has been a victory in my life. There have been failures, and I've learned from them. And so at the end of the day, I want to live with intentionality. I want to live with purpose based off of the faith that I have. And hopefully I can assist somebody along the way and encourage them. Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was life like as you were coming up? I grew up in Galena Park, Texas. I wasn't born there. I was born actually in Mexico. But my parents, when I was 6 months old, they made the journey to the United States. Back in the day, it was a lot easier for people to immigrate into the United States because of the requirement for workers during that time. So there was a lot of migrant work that was happening in the United States, and it was easier to obtain legal status as residents and whatnot if you were working. And so we benefited from that, and a lot of that comes just from my dad having a vision in the ranch and thinking like I don't want my children to have to turn over the same chunks of dirt that I've been turning over and my forefathers have turned over. He wanted something completely different. I acknowledge my father as being a visionary with regards to wanting something completely different and distinct. I'm so grateful for that because my siblings and we all have benefited from that decision. We all have our master's degrees. We all have our professions. And for that to happen during the first generation, as immigrants to the United States, I don't think it's very common. But I'm so grateful for that, for my parents. I'm grateful because the Lord has been so good to our family across the years. But we grew up with strong values in our family. My father was the only source of income for our family. My mom stayed at home, a traditional home. Mom had food when we arrived from school. Us kids, we grew up in a nice neighborhood. It wasn't rich or anything like that. It was middle class. We had our friends, and we enjoyed ourselves. And not to go into a rabbit trail, but oftentimes I reflect on my childhood and think about the childhood that my children are having and how distinct it is. And sure, they have a lot more than I ever had, but I had one thing that maybe they didn't, and I had freedom, right? Low expectations as well, because all we cared about was playing as kids. We didn't really care about the world or anything like that. We weren't thinking about what am I going to do for a job or anything like that. And so for us, it was just a lot of playtime. And there was a lot of freedom with that. And I think that's missed probably in today's society. I don't want to generalize, but I think that sometimes that's missing is that time to relax and that time to play. the time for kids to be bored at home nowadays, as everybody's well aware, with the advent of electronics, the black mirrors, right? They're always looking at them, and God forbid the Wi-Fi goes out, because then it's uh, a tragedy for our kids. When you look back now, were there moments in your younger years that shaped you to who you would eventually become? How did that happen? How are you who you are today? Tell us a little bit more on that. So, yeah, when I look back and I think about moments that shaped me, I think a lot about um, the church. We grew up in a church, and it was a fundamentalist church. There was a lot of rules and regulations in the church, I'll mention them here, and it's not a judgment. Please don't take it the wrong way. I have very near and dear memories of my time growing up. I had a wonderful childhood, but now as an adult, I look back and I think like, well, yeah, probably a little bit over the top. Like women couldn't cut their hair, they couldn't wear jewelry, we couldn't wear shorts. And I know that like some of our viewers that hear this may think like, whoa, seriously? Like you can't even wear makeup as a female? Or there was a lot of those types of rules and regulations in the church that I grew up in. Again, I go back to, hey, I was a kid and I saw it, but it really didn't apply because we were all about having fun and whatnot. And when I joined the military, that was pretty much the end of that. I ended up learning a lot more because I was no longer in an environment like that. That was pretty restrictive, and so I started really seeing the world um, in the military. But going back to the growth, there was one pastor. He was actually the general moderator, and a man that I really respected because I was at the time I was already 16 years old or so, and his name was Reverend Spencer Johnson, and he was the general moderator of that church. And I kid you not, like this man was a servant leader. Despite him having a position of power, he was the most humblest man that I had ever met. And throughout the years, even when I was in the military, and after I had even been married with my wife Sylvia, I was able to see him, and he was just the kindest man. He was much older then, but he was just the kindest man, and I've always reflected on his example, especially when I think about my job as an officer. Is how do I want to be perceived by the individuals whose lives I get to touch? Do I want them to see me as this figure that is unempathetic, or do I want them to see me as, hey, guys, I'm here to help you guys too? So I'm just so grateful for that opportunity. That shaped me as a young man. Let's talk a little bit about your military life and your journey. You've spent nearly 3 decades in military service, 29 years, point 5 to be exact. What kind of life changes a person? And how has the military shaped you? December 4th, 1996, I still remember the bus ride from Houston MEPS to San Antonio, Lackland, the gateway of the Air Force. And I still remember there was a kid that the whole way was like, they're gonna kill us, we're gonna die, and he was completely afraid of what was to come. And it was an experience. If anybody has ever gone through basic military training, it's it's definitely an experience because you're not at home anymore. Now you're you're training with 60 other guys or gals, and you're in bays, and you're sleeping in bunk beds and whatnot, and you have drill instructors military training instructors that are coming in there, and they're giving you some they're giving you some not sometimes kind words as they wake you up, and throughout the day as they're training you, trying to get you geared up. It is the military, right? So it's not going to be Disneyland. As we prepare our young men and women for potentially for being in a war environment. The training is very real, and it was when I went in. I'm sure previous generations would say that it was sugar coated, and I'm sure that it was different than when they came in, and has been different since I came in as well. That was one of those things, one of those experiences that really impressed me because I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were pretty soft spoken. My first engagement at that level was in military training, and sure enough, um, I would say most of us did not have a bowel movement. Hopefully, this doesn't offend anybody, but for a whole week, because that's the amount of stress that we felt in that environment. But it definitely helped strengthen me and toughen me up in the military. There was a lot more thing in 29 years. There's just no way that I would be able to share everything that has defined me in my military life. That was very, very impressive. And there's so many stories that can be shared along the way. Um, but I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to have started at the bottom, because that has given me a really good insight into what our airmen go through day in and day out. And I was able to serve for 12 years, enlisted. I was a tech sergeant in supply when I commissioned in 2009. In April 14, 2009, I was able to commission and achieve a dream. By that time, I had already been married with Sylvia, and I would be remiss not to mention, a very important defining moment in my life, which was meeting my wife in a deployment to Morón Air Base, Spain. Deployed there in February of 2003, and was able to meet Sylvia, and we had a beautiful courtship in the streets of Sevilla, Alcalá de Guaraida. The whole southern region, Andalusia province, is such a beautiful and historic location. The food, just the entertainment, the culture. If you've never been to Spain, like, you need to go visit. It's such a wonderful country to visit, and the people are very friendly. I was very fortunate to be able to meet who is my wife, who I love very much, and we're going on 24 years of marriage this year. That's crazy to me. I can't even imagine how time has flown that quickly. Oh, I'm sorry, not 24, 22 years. 22 years. Almost got that wrong. Yes, 22 years of marriage. And there's been a lot of ups and downs, because nothing is ever perfect in life, but I would say that I would do it all over again a million times with her, because she is an angel of a person. A lot of people see rank or accomplishment, but what would you say has been one of the hardest parts of your journey? One of the hardest parts of the journey for me has been the fact that nobody in my family had ever been military. And so for me, having to transition from not being military and not having any insight into what the military was or what that life was about, to having to learn everything on the fly through a lot of trial and error. Um, and I'll share a story. My first duty station, I get to my first duty station, and like I said, I grew up in a church that had quite a few restrictions, right? Like, you can even watch TV. Like, that was a sin. And so I show up at my first duty station, and one of my first jobs was at B-1 Bomber Avionics for the Night Bomb Squadron at Dyess Air Force Base. And these guys are talking about Forrest Gump and Forrest Gump this and Forrest Gump that, and they're making remarks like life is like a box of chocolates, I'm completely like, it's going over my head. Like I don't get what they're talking about, what they're referencing. And then I ask, so hey, what's Forrest Gump? And they laugh at me. And I was a young airman first class at the time, an E3, and they're laughing at me, and they're like, where did you grow up in? Did you grow up under a rock or in a cave? And they were brutally honest with me, and I didn't know it was a movie, and I didn't know it was a popular movie at that, from the time, and I was so embarrassed by that moment, but I had so many gaps in the military, and sometimes I still, even with 29 years of military service, sometimes I feel like I'm still navigating a lot of the unspoken rules and whatnot, just because I grew up in Houston, Texas, in a very predominant Hispanic community. And now I've been given the opportunity, and I've been so grateful for the journey, right? Because I was enlisted for 12 years, and then I became an officer, and the Lord's been so good to me, and I've had wonderful leadership that has provided me opportunities, to the point where I'm a deputy group commander now. I did squadron command at the LRS, at the Logistics Readiness Squadron at Goodfellow Air Force Base, which was magnificent 3 years. And we had such a wonderful team out there. And so I've been giving all these opportunities, but I've always felt like I still have my roots that are very strong in me, because I was born in Mexico, and I have family in Mexico that I love and that I wish I could go see, but we haven't been able to because of the security situation. It's just one of those things that I feel like I've had to navigate two worlds, and I've gotten better throughout the years. I've learned a lot along the way, and I've had wonderful coaches and mentors, and people that have just given me advice along the way, whether enlisted or officers, and I've been able to learn and just take away a lot from them, in my journey. And so for that, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve. But I've definitely learned a lot of things along the way. Faith seems to be a major part of your life. Has it always been that way? Yeah, so faith has been, a strong part of my life for a long time now. Again, going back to, I grew up in this church, right? And I and they did, they had some serious preachings, like, fire and brimstone type of messages that would really make your your heart quake and say, man, I got to get right with God. I definitely don't want to end up in a lake of fire. And regardless of where anybody stands in their life, spiritually, or their faith, in my personal life, I felt compelled. I felt the call to come to Christ when I was about 14 years old, and I committed myself to the Lord, to living for Him. And there was always a passion, even as a young man. I always had a passion to serve God with all my heart and with all my soul. And growing up in the church, I would read books, and I've always loved books because it gives me an insight into how other people lived, and it gives me ideas and whatnot. And I remember I had a really good friend, and we were about 16 years old, but we were on fire for Jesus, right? And we had this bright idea that, hey, we're gonna go and we're gonna preach. I had read the autobiography of John Cartwright, I believe was the name of this evangelist, and this is back like in the time frame of Lincoln, and he would go and preach to different locations. So we thought that it would be a fantastic idea to go spread the gospel in an open setting. We planned it on a particular Sunday after our Sunday morning service, and we went to HEB, and we said this is the place, and we're going to preach the gospel. And sure enough, Alex asked me, he was like, okay, man, you're first. And me not wanting to back down, I was like, okay, well, and with the Lord's help, and here we are. And I remember preaching a little bit of the message of Noah, right? Where Noah is charging people, or he's asking people, hey, you know what? Come into the ark. God's going to destroy the world. And so here I am in front of an HEB in Houston. It's in Jacinto City, actually. And we're out in front of HEB, and then the manager comes out and he's like, hey, I'm sorry guys, but you can't do that here. So needless to say, I quickly finished whatever portion I had to say, and we ended up walking away. And from then on out, we ended up venturing to like apartment complexes, which there was plenty to go around in his town and in mine. And we would go knock on doors, and we'd invite people. We'd tell them, hey, in about 5 minutes, we're going to be down there in the courtyard, and all you have to do is open your window or open your door. You don't have to go anywhere, and just listen to the message. And we would share 10 to 15 minutes of the gospel. But we were so passionate for Jesus, and I don't know, many times I reflect and I think, well, maybe that's why God has blessed me, right? Maybe that's why the Lord has given me all these opportunities, because I genuinely love Jesus, right? And because I genuinely want to help people. It really makes me happy to be able to do that. I get a lot of happiness by doing that, and that is, that's one of the motivations of why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. What's something people might find surprising to learn about you? Man, I like to do a lot of different things, and I like to grow in all different ways mentally. Um, I love detailing cars. To me, I find it soothing and relaxing. Not that I want to do other people's cars, but I like cleaning my cars and my wife's car, making sure that we have our cars are nice and clean. I actually did the ceramic detailing on it. Initially, I was going to pay somebody to do it, and then I found out the price, and I kind of chickened out and was like, maybe I can do it myself. And so I went online. YouTube, I do a lot of YouTubing where I just, hey, if I don't know something, I'll look it up on YouTube, and then I try to figure it out. And here soon, I may end up publishing some of the do-it-yourselves that I've been able to do since I started recording and stuff like that for these purposes. But I really just like venturing out of my comfort zone. One of the things as an officer that I tell other enlisted personnel and young officers is get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because that's where growth happens, when you're uncomfortable. I challenge anybody to have that growth mindset. Like really commit yourself to say, hey, you know what? I'm not just going to stay with this thing that I'm comfortable with. I'm going to start stretching the bounds. And there's a really good book. It's called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And it talks about neuroplasticity, right? The ability of the brain to create new connections. Neurons that fire together, wired together within our brain. And so I try to do that. And I'm not the smartest guy, and that's why I have to seek out resources, whether it be books, whether it be YouTube, whether it be ChatGPT. And I ask the question, I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to know about this. What's out there? Just because I like to be able to learn more. I also love music. I love playing the guitar, a bass, and I started learning accordion some years ago. But I'm a novice. I'm a novice at it, but it's a great thing to be able to learn new things. So I challenge anybody to try to do that, to have that growth mentality and not that fixed mentality, but actually challenge yourself. Do something different. One of the things that I've incorporated recently was I bought 2 different Bibles. I bought a Latin Bible and one in Portuguese, just because I want to be able to um, expand my reading ability in other languages. And so I'll read it in English, and then I'll read it in Latin, and then I'll read the same passages in Portuguese. And as a foreign area officer, that's helping me because that's one of the Latin American languages that, as a foreign area officer, I need to have those competencies and I need to test on every year to maintain those proficiencies. What role has your family played in your life? Apart from our faith in the Lord, family's where it's at. I'm fortunate that I have a family. Through thick and thin, I will say that, right? Because it is a challenge raising kids. I've told people, like, one of the hardest things that you will ever do as a parent, or as an adult, is to raise children, whether they're biologically yours or whether you foster them or whatnot. It's no joke. It's a process, but it is a joy. It is a blessing. There's a lot of beautiful, precious moments. Yeah, there are those moments where the child is sick and you have to go to the hospital or you have to go to the clinic or whatnot, and you have to tend to them, or they can't go to school, and yeah, it's tiring, but that's part of the journey. That's part of life. That's part of what it is to be a parent. And the hope, the anticipation is that you'll be able to raise them. That's my hope. That's our anticipation, Sylvia and mine, is that we'll be able to raise our children, our two boys who are teenagers, and that they will become men of God and great men, and that they will be a benefit, that they will help out society to make it better, right? To add to it and not detract from it. When all is said and done, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind? I think about legacy and I think about impact. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, and when we close our eyes for the last time on this world, if there was a legacy that I'd want to leave behind, it would be that I impacted people positively, that I was a good man, that I was genuine, authentic, and truthful. And I was somebody that helped, was willing to help as much as humanly possible. And that I was able to do a good job with my boys, that I was able to raise them right. And that they would be able to reflect on that even once I'm gone, and be able to share the stories and the lessons that I passed on to them, and that they would keep my memory alive for future generations of having been somebody that was a trailblazer, somebody that was courageous, somebody that was passionate, and that lived life to the fullest, and that lived it right. That's the legacy that I would love to have. And that I loved my wife and cared for her and honored her every single day that we were together. What do you hope people will feel when they watch your channel? I want them to be encouraged. There's so many things in social media nowadays, in all the platforms. And sometimes you don't get enough of that positivity, right? You get a lot of things in your face, right? Like, oh, look at me, like, check this out, right? And it's all vying for the attention of people. And sometimes it's not always the most positive stuff. Sometimes it's very superficial as well. There's not a lot of deep thought, a lot of deep emotion, and And oftentimes it's very negative, very divisive. What I want people to take away from my videos, from the videos that we make in the Purposeful Man, and from social media, what I post and whatnot, is, hey guys, life is wonderful. Life is beautiful. Continue to grow. Look at the positive aspect of life. Be a glass half full person versus a glass half empty. Instead of focusing on the negative, focus on the positive. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have and how blessed you are in your life. Because there's another person out there that probably wasn't able to get out of bed, or is probably laid up in a hospital, or is probably having some sort of difficulty, emotional, psychological, physical. And so, needless to say, I just want people to be blessed. People to be blessed in their hearts, in their lives. At the end of the day, I want them to be able to take that and to be able to step away from the episode and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm motivated. I'm going to keep going. Yeah, I've had some rough patches, but I'm going to keep pushing. That's what I'm going to do. Last question. If someone watching this feels lost, discouraged, or uncertain about life right now, what would you want to tell them? If somebody's feeling discouraged, lost, or uncertain about life right now, what I want to share with them is stay with it. Don't give up. Life has many ups and downs. There will be some serious valleys that you will go through. Think about the mountains you've been on. Think about the clouds that you've ridden on. Focus on your faith. Focus on what's important. I'm reminded of when I went through my double bypass. Before they figured out that I had 2 coronary arteries that were completely blocked. How frightened I was. It was a terrible and long and grueling health valley that I had to navigate. Fortunately, I had my wife. Fortunately, I had my children. I had my church community in Tucson as well. I had a wonderful pastor. But it was really difficult. It was a very trying time. And it really put a lot of things in perspective, and which is one of the reasons why I do what I do now as well. Because it made such a lasting impact in my life. And it was rough. And there was days that, I kid you not, I'd go to bed and I actually would pray, if you got to take me, take me. Because I was suffering. Physiologically, I was suffering. My body was not responding the way that it had always responded. And I was having all kinds of terrible symptoms. And psychologically, it was really impacting me to the point of depression. It's a battle. It's a struggle every single day. And nobody knows it more than those people that have gone through cancer treatments or have gone through serious ailments in their bodies that have put them down and out of commission for a long time. But have faith. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in others. Have faith in the Lord. Grab onto something that will make life worth living. Don't give up. Too many people give up. Don't give up. That's what I would tell them. Because life is worth living. And there are better days yet ahead with the Lord's grace and with the Lord's help. Well, I think people are starting to understand the heart behind the Purposeful Man. Thank you for for sharing your story with us today. And I want to thank everybody for being here with us as well. I truly hope this journey encourages people. I hope that it helps them to heal, to learn, and discover purpose together. And we'll see you on the next The Purposeful Man. May God bless you.